Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again my man, Guion Hughes. Guion, always good to have you on.
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, and today we're going to be talking about quantum chaos magic. And this is going to be interesting because it's kind of like a mix of, it's kind of like merging science and magic into one. But basically, for those who don't know, explain to them what quantum chaos magic is.
Yeah, well, it's like you're saying, it's about bringing our reality and magic and mixing it together, kind of like that. Like how a movie's kind of it's magic because it makes you feel all these emotions and stuff, and it's really just a trick of lights on the screen. So a lot of the stuff that we see as magic, we just look as it at technology, right? And I think we're merging to the level of where those two things can meet, and we can use, maybe science experiments or higher, quantum mechanics and physics to as our base to look at why we create our own reality with our consciousness in certain ways, and that we call spells, rituals, or any kind of activity processes.
Yeah, there's a reason why magicians will say focus your intent. That's important. And things like that, because what we're going to talk about is the fact that these subatomic particles seem to be self-aware and to be conscious in certain ways. But the heart of this discussion is based on what's called the double slit experiment. So go ahead and explain to them about the double slit experiment.
So scientists were actually measuring light, and they actually put light onto a wall and then put a slit in it, one slit at that point, right? And then observed that it acted like a particle, going through the slit like that. So just one outcome when the light goes through and you see just a little slit of light. So they took and put two slits. So there's two possible outcomes. They could go this way or that way, because they're actually trying to measure at the subatomic level. So these are little tiny, like light. It looks just like light to us, but it looks like little particles to them because they're measuring it with all this scientific equipment and stuff. So when the particles, when there's two slits, and they were measuring only the back of where the photons landed, and there was two slits, and they weren't looking at the two slits. They were looking just at of what happened. These two, where you would imagine that there's two slits, just like there was the one slit, there's the two slits here, the two things of light, but there's not that. It just still kept acting like an infinite things, like it went through the wall with the two slits and there was nothing there. It was still going with infinite, like it was still acting like a wave. It was making a pattern on the back like a wave, and not like the two particles or the one particle. So it's acting that way. They actually go to the two slits and they look at the two slits and see, why is that happening, right? Why are they getting that? While they're looking at which particle goes through which slit, it actually starts going back looking like the two slits that you would believe it, only because they're observing it.
Yeah.
So that's observing that is the for what I don't know if it's just us using our will, or if we're those particles are actually like there's an actual human consciousness observing this in some way. I got to change. I got to make a decision. I can't just keep acting like a superposition, which is an infinite possibility of things.
Right. So the electron really will decide to act different as though it was aware it was being watched. So like with waves, so you have you're shining light through two slits, and you get the two, right here, two things of light on the other end. But if you were to do waves like with a liquid or some kind of any waves, really, when the two waves go through, if once they touch each other, they cancel each other out, and you get a pattern this way and not just like this.
Yeah.
And we wanted to know why that was. Well, when they were firing one photon at a time, because they thought, well, maybe it's just them interacting with each other. When they fire one photon at a time through these two slits, and they put a measuring device behind where the slits were, That's when that's when it was different. They got this instead of this. So it's kind of like, even though no one's behind there, the electron knows that it's being measured. It knows that it's being watched or measured, and it's just gonna, and it goes in a different direction. It acts differently. It has a different reaction, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tells us that somehow, that first of all, it tells us we don't understand the subatomic world completely, and also that the subatomic world, these particles are self-aware. Now, how does that tie into magic? Well, that just goes to show that when you focus on, when you're doing a ritual and you focus on something, obviously the particles, they make up our world, the different elements make up what we see around us. These particles, when you focus your intent at your altar, whether you're doing candle magic or whatever, the electrons will realign themselves and to bend reality to what your intention is. You may not be able to see it, from a spiritual point of view, excuse me, it's going to happen. But from a scientific point of view, it's happening also. You just can't see it. But scientifically, it can be measured.
Yeah, yeah. And that wave is like source of infinite possibilities. And to certain degrees, I mean, we wouldn't want like the most absurd, things happening. Like a lot of people say, well, if you talk about whatever you think about will eventually happen, But
Yeah.
like people are like, well, why can't you just think about like $1 million and it happens, right? I mean, there has to be safeties for that. I mean, unless you go into some kind of bizarro world, because like, what if you think of an elephant and then it just explodes a big elephant, right?
When it's different, because during ritual, you're sending your intention out, whether it's into a candle flame or you're sending it out into the universe.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just, let's say, sitting on your bed daydreaming, obviously the particles are still aligning, but that's more of a long-term thing, because the more you focus on something, you say, oh, I'm going to do something about this. How can I make this happen? You start brainstorming. And then you go out and you start doing actions to make that and bring that into your reality.
Yeah.
So it's more of a step-by-step process and long-term process. But it's different when you're in ritual and you're sending your intention out into the universe, or you're doing things under a particular moon phase or however you practice. They really, the electrons and everything will change shape and go out and cause a ripple effect, because you gotta remember, everything is like connected to a web. Everything is connected to what was it Carl Jung called? Was it collective consciousness, collective unconscious?
Collective unconscious, yeah.
The collective unconscious. Everything is connected to that. All these particles can form into a bridge between you and the collective unconscious to make things happen. And this is why focus and a positive attitude is so important. In your daily life. What do you think?
Yeah, no. What I'm thinking is so from a chaos magic point of view, if you want to start your own little custom thing, and people can assign the ways any way they want. It's important people come up with their own ideas, and that's in their practice. Whether if they want to follow religion or any kind of ideas, it's like whatever. But I would say, using those two examples of we were saying the wave and the particle, the wave would be chaos and the particle would be order. And what the only thing that really, perceives even the concept of chaos or order would be a human being or a human mind or some kind of consciousness up to that level. So using that as a dichotomy, you could say, like if you are using spirits or whatever, that you're the particle, trying to influence the wave to produce particles that that do positive things in your life or whatever, right? Whatever your intent is, right? To reach a higher understanding of all this, or whatever, I mean, whatever your intent. I mean, people could just, process this awareness and just think of anything and it'll be positive as long as it's positive thoughts,
Well, one thing I did want to mention is that it's my personal philosophy that everything is connected through symbolism. Okay, well, I guess that's more like just a fact. Everything is connected through symbolism. That's why when we're doing magic, we have items that are symbolic of certain things on our altar, and we use in our magical practice because there was an experiment that was done when scientists had. What they did was, and this was a video that was sent to me by Catna Willis. I thought it was so interesting, and it relates to what we're talking about now from the subatomic world. Let's talk about water. So what happened was someone had what they did was they took on a piece of paper and they wrote milk, and they put it in a bowl of water. Okay, they froze the water using a certain method. And what they noticed when they started looking at the water from a microscope, it was in the shape of a woman's breast. And all they did was write milk on a piece of paper, throw it in the water, and it aligned itself to something that produces milk. They also did this with other words. They wrote down ego, and they put it on paper, and they put it in water, and it looked like the outline of somebody with a big head, you know what I mean?
Have you ever heard of this?
And same with pictures. They put pictures of something, which doesn't have the outline of it, just the picture, and it aligned itself to something that was in the picture or something. The picture it drew it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, this same experiment is in the same movie with this one that I mentioned. It's this movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? Have you ever heard of it?
No, I've never heard of that movie.
Yeah, it's uncanny. I mean, they're kind of it was kind of a new agey thing, right? And they were using these experiments like this to prove that, not necessarily like in our way of thinking with Dark Sorcery so much, but just that like The Secret, for example, like that kind of sympathetic magic, a more lighter type thing, like, oh, whatever I think, or I'm going to do affirmations, or, so they're doing these experiments. This is where I first heard about this, right? This is back in the 90s. So I understand it's like, it's a generational thing. They were put this movie out with these experiments proving how consciousness affects reality. And there was a few more. You have to, I don't know if it's on YouTube. It probably is. It's called What the Bleep Do We Know? And it's like, it's put out there. There is a religious. There's kind of a strange, new agey. Some people call it a cult, but it's like it was a group, and they have this leader named Rathma, and put that all together. I forget what her real name is, but Right. So anyway, but it's just you got to watch that now because we didn't even know that, right? That I didn't know that you had that experiment and they're in the same movie. And that movie explains this a lot more, and then maybe we could even do a show on the movie. I mean, that'd be
yeah, we can do that down the road. But I thought that was interesting. I thought that and that leads some scientists to say we don't even understand what water really is if it's doing that. We don't understand it completely, just like we don't understand the subatomic world.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, see, in that movie, they actually went to the step of actually putting like "I hate you" and taping it onto the water, and something like freedom, and taping it on the other water, right? And then just letting it sit, and then the I hate you look like this hell, like this all these little like a spider web that's all messed up, and then the freedom, it looked like it was like a almost like a snowflake,
it's almost that's crazy because it's almost like in a way you could say that our altar table is kind of like a chessboard. That all you got to do through this understanding is set the chess pieces the way that what your intent is, and you can, through this, you can align the electrons to your will. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, that's a great example too. To segue into a more of a occult action is one of the things that we do in these occult circles, especially like in voodoo and stuff like that. You'll get a glass of water and put like maybe a sigil underneath it, or have some other prepared like sign you want it underneath it, or as a spirit to inhabit this water. and then you pray and do all kind of whatever you want to do, right? In voodoo, you know, they pray or whatever. If it's you put energy into that you want this spirit of like war in that water, and then, you know, they might add some herbs or whatever, you know, or it could be an alcoholic drink, you know, but chanting that and then drinking that, it's supposed to bring the spirit into you. I mean, that's why they call it spirits too, you know, instead of alcohol spirits. So I mean, it segues into that, you know, if you put that, I mean, what is all the intent on that? What's the intent of a shot of, you know, Jack Daniels when you're really, you know, whatever, you know, it's like that's a ritual in its own, you know, like and that's why it segues into like why I like to, you know, use like things that happen like dancing in bars and stuff is like, you know, it's just as relevant of a ritual as some kind of like, you know, doing things with you know, these things or whatever.
Well, yeah, you're a chaos
props and stuff at home,
of course,
you know,
you know,
I mean,
dancing in a bar, you know, being in a certain state of mind. I mean, I could see how that could sort of, you know, bring change and focusing on certain things, you know.
Yeah.
But now you had done a video talking about this stuff on your channel, and you had mentioned about samsara. Go ahead and explain to the viewers about samsara and how it relates to this subject.
Yeah, so going back to the double slit just briefly, if we could think, so that basically just was their proving with their mathematics and everything that there's like two choices and humans kind of make that up, and those two choices are infinite in a sense, right? So those two choices are infinite is just such a statement that's beyond our thinking, right? Because if, you know, usually it would just be whatever, like I move my hand, it moves that way. But if I move my hand and like I went back to when I was 5 years old, that's like one of the infinite things, you know. So they call that quantum immortality. It was an idea that came out of that, and it really relates to this other thing, samsara, which is a Buddhist philosophy of how we just keep, you know, reincarnation in a sense, but it's like kind of super reincarnation. So we don't just like die and become another person, or we become Napoleon or whatever, or we become a you know, spaceman or an alien. We like have to keep redoing this life until we're like, it's the best life possible. Where at the end of it, it's like, that's the best it could ever be. And then you report back to some kind of other thing. And then, so when we die in these things, say, you know, that explains kind of like away a little bit the grief that we experience in life. If people are like, oh, these two, you know, people died in their 20s in a car crash, it's like, that's horrible, but they're just going to come back when they're kids and they'll have to relive it without the car crash this time somehow, you know? I mean, that's the...
So does this, so would you say that this kind of relates to the concept of there being a multiverse kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Like reliving you in each multiverse, that type of thing?
Yeah. And that is what a lot of people call it, the multiverse theory. I mean, it breaks down to the multiverse theory. I mean, and they're using mathematics and all kinds of stuff, not just like philosophizing about it like I do. But well, so they're using more things, and it comes down to the multiverse. So they can't actually prove the multiverse theory like that, but it can't be disproven. It's just, you know, one of those things that's in the limbo of it. But that's just official science. I mean, we've been that all the time for magical practices, you know, or spiritual practices. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
That's just what some scientist in MIT or something says, you know.
Well, also the fact that we're talking about the light going through the two slits, you know, without it being observed, then you have this pattern, which is like the waves are kind of like infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
The situation could go an infinite amount of ways. There's no, it's not set in stone. It could go this way. It could go that way. It could go this way, that way, that type of thing.
Yeah, you know, and I'd like to call it, I'd like to say that's chaos, but I mean, you could assign it any name, right? You could say the wave, or you could say it's chaos, right? Because it is almost all, you know, chaotic possibilities, you know, of more than we can almost think, you know, as far as bending time and space. But that's the thing, is we look at time because of these bodies we have that only last 100 years max, right? So we look at everything from 100 years, you know, like, so like if we had bodies that lasted 1,000 years, you know, 100 years would be a year, you know, probably something like that.
What I think is interesting,
based on all these different factors of where whatever creates this universe, whatever it's going through. I think, you know, I think it's kind of a living being. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it is conscious.
Yeah, we're processing. I mean, for us, you know, and this is a Salimic thing too, is like the star, our sun, right? Is the most thing we know that's kind of close to God, that we're so removed from, we can never understand. And if we got too close, we'd burn up from real far away. It's ominous, the most ominous thing, you know. But I think, you know, I've talked about this before, and I think this kind of fits into this, you know, is that I feel that the sun is actually, you know, with its radiation language, is actually through all these years, or, you know, whatever, millennia, you know, whatever you want to do, because the sun lives 4 billion years old, not 100 years. So time to it is nothing, you know. Time to us, just the time that we existed here, you know, it's just another experiment of its radiation.
You know, so it's interesting that Einstein said that time is based on perception.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, if you're at work and you're constantly looking at the clock, you know, time is going to go slower. But if you keep yourself occupied and busy, then you look at the clock, you know, hardly at all. Wow, where did time go? You know, time goes fast. It goes faster when you don't observe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, how would you say that ties into quantum chaos?
Well, the time
itself.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking the way that time fits in is like, there was like a thought experiment, you know, like this is from Einstein also, right? And so what he did is he actually, you know, it's this thought experiment, because we don't have the technology yet to do this, to have like say there's a spaceship. That's why things like Star Trek and Star Wars really wouldn't last. It's like, if there's a spaceship right here and there's people here in this time and space, they're taking off, and then they somehow get a rocket where they survive and they go close to the speed of light, you know, like just within a little bit of the speed of light. And the closer it gets to the speed of light, the more this happens, right? When they come back, they're just like it was like, you know, like a few hours, right? Maybe a day. They come back and everybody they know is dead, because they were moving it close to the speed of light. And what time is to that, going fast to the speed of light? And this is like he did this all mathematically. This is not even quantum mechanics. This is a relativity. You know, I mean, so relativity means time relative to space. So if you're going so fast that you're kind of warping space a little bit, like going close to the speed of light, time also ripples. You know, it moves with it, and that's where the whole thing with Einstein. That's what made me understand time magic like that. You know, and this also fits into the quantum immortality, right? If that's the case, you know, time would be something that what is the definition of time? It's maybe we're just cameras recording everything, and that makes time. Time to us, because we only have these 100 years. Time to the sun is observing us, observing it, maybe something like that. You know, I mean, you can put any meaning onto it.
Somehow this has to tie into the timing of your spell. You know, I mean, because there seems to be a close relationship between photons and between time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure gravity gets tied into that as well.
You
know?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it reminds me of like one of my most favorite definitions of magic, right? It's in that book Siddhartha, and that goes kind of to the Buddhist theme a little bit too, right? About samsara and all that stuff. And it's like, wait, I lost my train of thought for a second. I had something going on over there. So anyway, so with Siddhartha, his thing of magic was like, it's like you just know how to wait, how to fast, and how to think, and he says that's what fools call magic, you know. And he's talking as kind of like a Buddhist monk about magic, right? That's what fools call magic, right? So when you think about it, that doesn't seem like what is that going to do, right? But how to wait is all time, you know. it's all the timing, the astrology, astronomy, whatever, you know.
Doing things on certain dates,
you know,
certain phases, certain planetary alignments.
How to think is our intent, or our power, our awareness, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and the sacrifice part, you know. I mean, how to fast is what he called it, like how to give things up. Like, what do you get? Even if you get what you want, you're gonna have to give some things up that you like now. So you're gonna, you know, maybe you should just say ahead of time, what do I want to give up? What I want to get, you know, because you can't always have the two things, you know. That's almost like you know, the two slits. You got to make some decisions.
Progress is always give and take.
Yeah.
I mean, if you constantly just take, you're not going to get anywhere, you know, as far as, you know, with anybody or with anything, You know, it's always give and take to move forward and make progress.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to mention where I started thinking about this. We talked about it a little bit. I thought it was funny is what got me on this train of thought with the quantum immortality and coming back and all that is I read this article and it said you know how there was a big thing about the 2012 the world, you know, and a lot of occult people, new agers mostly, you know, they really believed in 2012 the Aztec calendar's ending and all that stuff, right? And then it came, you know, and there's nothing, right?
Nothing happened.
It's a bunch of BS, right? But like this article, which I think they were coming from, I don't know if they were being humorous or what, but they were like, but what if we all did die in 2012 and we're just running through these weird like simulations or something, you know?
Yeah, there's some people that believe, oh my God, we really did die in 2012 and we're actually in a different timeline. And some people think it has to do with CERN. You know? Yeah.
Well, there's that Mandela effect. You know what that you heard about that, the Mandela effect? Yeah, where people some people swear they were in another universe where there's like this small difference, you know, but
you know, I'm convinced that does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna get into specifics.
Yeah.
But I know that like there's times when I wake up and things are not the way that they were. Like things have just been changed in my surroundings. It's almost like there's been an altered. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Basically, things are different when you wake up than the way they were yesterday, and you swear they were, but everyone says that they weren't.
Yeah.
You know, like I do realize that there is some truth to that. You know, I think it is possible. That we do walk into other. I do think that there are certain portals left open that might have to do something with certain landlines that are around the earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's possible for certain people to maybe walk into a different timeline, or maybe just things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you think? Wander in and out of different timelines.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes things are different, and they swear they have a memory of them being different, but everyone swears that they were not. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know if it's the same thing, but I think they also have these things they call ley lines, which are like it goes through the pyramids and it goes through the equator, and all these different. So they're like,
I do think
Sedona's supposed to be on one, I think, and
they're all over the place.
Mount Shasta is supposed to be on a big vein. Yeah, those are. I mean, that's really interesting too. And then
all the pyramids are built on landlines all over the world.
Yeah. It's basically what we're here to do is process time and space, and you can put that all the way back to you don't have to use a religion or a god to guide you. You could use your own, and you can call it whatever you want. I'd call it like a cyberpunk, Wild West, chaos magic. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I'm just saying. I think people should get creative with their own styles if they're chaos magicians.
It's funny, and I think maybe that's your personality. You have an attractive personality, and people like to hear from you because of your interest in chaos magic. You know what I mean? It's exciting to know that there's infinite amount of possibilities, and there's nothing set in stone. You can make changes using just about anything, and just on a whim, I guess you could say, or through repetitive cycles. I do like we were talking about before. I do believe everything is connected through symbolism, and I think that if you do things in certain cycles and you apply numerology to things, you can really get creative with how things play out. Because I'm strong. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that goes to another, like I think there needs to be a blending of which of course all these things were just looked at as jokes or whatever, like numerology, even astrology to a certain degree. I mean, by scientists or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I think that people should, and maybe that's a new person like a balancer or something, like they can balance, astronomy and astrology, or quantum mechanics and magic, or and understand that it is the way that people are thinking differently, I mean, we are all in this kind of shared thing, but we are all like we're kind of like the single slit. We're just making the thing, you know, and we're taking all the other stuff. So we're you know, we're standing there like that. Sometimes we could put our arms out or something and move around or say certain things, and we could change that thing that's coming behind us, you know, which is whatever you want to call it, the wave, the particle, or you know,
Well,
the
this is one reason
duality,
why
or you want
speech
to
is
call
so
it
important.
chaos, you know.
You know, speech is very, very important. And when they say speaking things into existence, it has a very strong scientific basis when you look at this philosophy and these experiments. I mean, when you say things, you know, the particles will align themselves a certain way. I mean, that's why people always put themselves down and they say negative things and things, just their life turns out negative, because that's what happens. I mean, it's kind of like with water, you know what I mean? Even water will realign itself, you know, and it's like with waves in water. You put something out there, put a wave out, you know, the wave comes back, you know, and that's what you get, you know, because the subatomic particles will align themselves based on, you know, your perception, and especially on what you say. I'm very careful on how I say things. You know, I try to make statements about myself that are positive, even if I'm just joking with somebody, even if I'm just trying to use an analogy. I always try to, if when it relates to myself, if in the sentence it says myself or me, I try to keep the negativity out of the sentence. Yeah. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, you know, I mean, I agree with the statement like that. I think I might have slid into, you know, with the culture of online, especially on Facebook and stuff, because I'm pretty popular on Facebook, or well known, or whatever you want to say, infamous or whatever. So like, you know, a lot of them people have a tendency to troll and maybe get things out online that they you know that they don't want to get out around other people, you know, their loved ones around them or something like that. And then, so I've lashed out. I mean, I'll admit it, you know, and I think there's lots of people that, and you know, I try to delete things and whatever, you know, I was, or sometimes I might have a couple drinks and go on the computer or whatever. But you know, I mean, it's definitely a good thing to stay neutral and positive, and that's what I'm all about. You know, just these groups are they're it's almost like their culture is to be somewhat divisive, and like it started like in like 4chan type things. You know, it's like kind of like a cyber culture where all the people argue and fight, and they've known each other for years. But you know, it's and a lot of that is this stuff that you know, a lot of this psyop stuff they're trying to talk about. He did it, so a lot of the people I have to back away from, you know. But a lot of these people are, you know, because into meme magic and stuff like that, I go around.
I do believe that certain things that you post on social media can definitely affect your personal energy. Like, take for instance, if you say, well, I send everybody positive energy, you know, and I've seen this with certain people, you know, you'll feel, that person will feel drained, you know what I mean, and depressed. It's because that post is sending everyone their positive energy. So if they delete that post, that'll stop, and they'll start to heal. You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is, you know, and this is where we're going into the whole thing. We don't even look at that as magic necessarily, right? Is put a post on Facebook or whatever.
Well, it's like, it's kind of like taking some of the method of magic out and looking at it from a scientific point of view. It does make sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think you know, just the acknowledgement that we have the capacity to create our own reality. I mean, even though maybe it'll never be scientifically and mathematically done, who knows? But you know, they're still working on those problems in quantum mechanics all the time to see how deep they can go. And there's all kinds of, there's like string theory. There's a theory that we have, you know, there's 11 different strings so they're going into the wave of chaos, and it's all the little different strings, and those are like infinite, you know, dimensions. We just have no way as human beings, because of our three-dimensional bodies, of perceiving all the way up to 11 different strings. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. You know, that's not even quantum. That's more like a whole nother. But I mean, that's what's fun about these things, is you hear about these theories, and it is a good thing to spend time on. It flexes your mind a little bit. I mean, especially me, I'm getting older. I need to get the mental calisthenics going about this stuff. So yeah, I've been researching about that and the different experiments. I just I want to. I mean, maybe we could link those videos because I know it's kind of hard for people to understand it without the visual thing. Because once you watch the video, it made more sense. Don't you think?
So the video about the double slit experiment.
Yeah, the double.
We put in the video below in the video description so that people can watch that if they want to. It's only like 5 minutes,
Yeah, yeah.
We get an idea of the basis of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
on this scientific experiment. Now, you had mentioned related to this in one of your videos about turning trauma into power. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I think that all of the way that the psychology, modern psychology, even I have this theory that it comes from a bad place. I mean, maybe people try to want to have it come from a good place, but in psychology, even modern psychology, there's always a disorder, disease, mental illness. Nobody goes to the psychiatrist and walks away like, they're like, hey, you're doing great, and here's some other ways to do better, right? They're like, nah, you need to be drugged. You need to be, right? I mean, it's not a good thing, right? So my idea is that these so-called, disorders and all that are most of them are like PTSD, they would say, or any of these things are protection mechanisms from trauma that we experience, so we don't, experience that again. I mean, sometimes it's overdone, and you see that mostly a lot of people online, especially they'll get obsessive online about things, because it's different than talking, that's a different level of magic, But I mean, look at all the things that have been done with the online stuff, with this post, and I mean, there's been attacks, riots, all that they're doing flash mob robberies with that. I mean, this is really cyberpunk magic stuff. I mean, I'm not condoning any of this. It's horrible stuff, I don't think people should steal or any of that kind of stuff.
I do believe that everybody is powerful. They just don't realize it. It's just a matter of channeling that energy or that trauma to a certain way, in a certain direction, and then getting the result.
Yeah. So my idea also about that is these things that they call disorders or autism or ADHD or PTSD or all these general things where they're just trying to generally put it in, and it's always a disorder, right? It's never a opportunity, or it's never like, it's never like, no, I mean, my theory would be these would be kind of like almost like mutant powers, and so their race can, it's just they won't be trained because it's considered deep down they think that it's a witchcraft power, right? I mean, that's where they're coming from, an asylum system, right? Where it's based on funny. The witch trials,
if the Christians or religious people want to call it demonic power or anything like that, it's really no different than the book of Acts in the New Testament, when they can all of a sudden, they get filled with the Holy Spirit and they can all of a sudden do supernatural things. It's similar. It's just really a witch knows how to channel that energy, to go in a certain direction. And especially, you could say you're similar to a superhero when you're at your altar table and you got your arms and you're sending energy out. It's the same thing. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of these things that are that people get diagnosed for and drugged and all that stuff are potential, like witch powers or whatever, and I mean, I think definitely. That's the thing. So if ADHD is looked at as a disorder, but if you could read 5 or 6 books, in an hour about one subject, I mean, because I'm used to books. Now people online, it's a whole different thing.
It definitely is an advantage because, I mean, people who have to take a pill because they constantly daydream and can't pay attention. Well, and that means that they can easily be in 2 worlds at once.
Yeah.
And that gives them an advantage over somebody else at something.
Oh, yeah. And they're not, they're natural magicians, they're natural energy vampires to a certain degree,
They just don't know how to.
They'd be seen as either energy vampires or class clown or somebody that's kind of negative,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then
Definitely,
that goes into starting the whole subcultures that tie into the occult in certain ways, or at least in LA here, with with goth and like industrial, and so I mean that's like the vibe that I try to get into, even if it's at clubs and stuff, just moving it all is a statement to the universe about what you want, and what you're thinking. If you're putting out the positive thoughts, like you said, positive energy, positive thoughts, best no matter what the outcome is, then that'll come back to you, I feel.
This is one reason I think why cleansing your aura is important. Do you think so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Especially
sure.
when you're out in public a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like your aura is kind of like, remember when you were a kid, you had those sticky hands, and then you would get that out of the machine, gumball machine, and then by the end of the week, it was just had all this written hair on it, and it was useless.
Well, I mean, I think cleansing the aura and even putting up shield in the places that I go,
Yeah.
Having a magical shield, or at least envisioning yourself, where,
This is
like
why
the
visualization
barrier
is
to a
very
certain
important.
degree.
Yeah.
Because most people nowadays, whether it's COVID or it's politically correct, or if they don't want to, like, I don't even touch hands that much, because you never know, I don't even know about all that stuff. It's it feels like just bringing negativity, and then how even mentioning it. So as far as the the diseases and stuff that might be around, or
you
something
mentioned
like
about having a shield around you.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people do this. I mean, I know a lot of Christians when they pray,
Like
they do
namaste
this.
thing, yeah.
This actually came from the East in ancient practices and ancient spiritual. When they do this, what that does is it creates an energy vortex around you.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why a lot of people pray when they do. They don't know why they do it when they pray, though.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I do that a lot too, especially like in certain communities. That's that's a better way. I mean, I think the thing is, I'm just saying, how this relates to reality. It is a good idea to keep personal space until you know people better and stuff like that. Especially in the environments that I'm in. You got to kind of have awareness, and this brings in the whole other idea of like reading. Like how can you read people? Can you read yourself? Could you read the room? Could you read the environment? Because it's not all like, of course, it's not all just our eyes and what we can touch. You got to have a, somebody who has that what you're saying, the vortex of protection has to have an awareness of what's going on around, and that could be pure chaos, but you could pull out what you want because you're the observer, you're the awareness, and you're processing this chaos, but you don't have to always call it chaos because it's just partially it becomes a feedback loop, and you are creating stuff that's like pretty positive for your life, so it's not chaos because chaos has a negative connotation. You could say it's processed chaos with awareness of being peaceful, and then and I put a message on beyond that, right, to cancel out the chaos. Because I mean, because it even as a thing, people come to that. Maybe it's a simplistic question, but it is kind of true. It's like, if you're chaos magic, I mean, would you really want to be chaotic all the time? And like, myself, I do kind of thrive on chaos, because I mean, that was a concept in the 80s when I was when I worked at a corporate job, is thriving on chaos, and I did kind of get into that mode where I could, and that was just like an early form of it's kind of like a corporate new agey form of a chaos magic. They're just whatever comes at you, just pick out what you want, and there's everything else you just kind of ghost or get rid of or banish with laughter. And then, so like so these are things. Yeah. So to cancel out the chaos, if you want to get the results, I mean, I'm just saying to look at it as chaos from the beginning, I think is good for the chaos magic name thing, but anybody could put anything. They could call this technology or whatever, I don't know.
Then get
The
creative.
Scientology's taken. So technology. I don't know if that would be a way to
I think if we talk about this enough and as many times, eventually, it'll
get some kind of weird name, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, man, that was a good discussion on quantum chaos magic. Everyone who's watching, below in the video description, they can watch the double slit experiment. The video, I'll have that there. Also, check out Guillotine Productions, Guion's YouTube channel, his Instagram page, all his social media. Those links will be below. Also, Guion, thanks again for your time.
Yeah, great to be here. I loved it.
And everyone who's watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.